We've got some sad news for the campus community this week, some exciting news, and some helpful news to share.
Mason Miller is back this week with some tips for meditation and mindfulness. And Ty the Sports Guy explains the big news in Braves athletics this week.
We also look at some employment problems under pandemic conditions. We appreciate you sticking around for these remote webcasts. As always, you're watching Carolina News Today. The UNCP family near and far took a big hit this week when they learned of the passing of former Chancellor Dr. Joe Oxendine. Oxendine was Chancellor for 10 years, from 1989 to 1999. Born and raised in Pembroke, he spent most of his academic career at Temple University in Philadelphia, where he was founding dean of their College of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. At Pembroke State University, he shepherded the school through its name change to UNCP and a restructuring into colleges with deans. He prohibited the use of offensive Indian characters in branding the university and oversaw the adoption of the Braves head logo. Many new degree programs were established on his watch, including nursing and the MBA. Oxendine came out of retirement in 2011 to serve as interim president of his alma mater, Catawba College. He was 90 years old and living in Pinehurst when he died over the weekend.
Another retiree, Professor Hal Davis of the music department, died over the weekend, back in his hometown of Wichita, Kansas. Davis was director of UNCP's musical theater program for 10 years and retired in 2016. He had numerous Broadway, off-Broadway, and regional theater credits to his name. At Pembroke, he taught classes and directed at least one musical per year. Davis was 70 years old and had recently battled cancer.
UNCP will share in millions of dollars in federal funds to provide direct grants to students facing economic hardships related to their education because of the pandemic. The money comes from the CARES Act, signed into law by President Trump on March 27th. The university is slated to get about $6.2 million, and at least half of it must be used for student emergency grants. The allocation under the law was based largely on the number of full-time students who receive Pell Grants. University spokeswoman Jody Phelps says administrators are working closely with UNC system officials to come up with guidelines and procedures to make sure eligible student needs are met.
My name is Michelle Yitz, and I'm a sophomore in the Honors College and Mass Communications program at UNCP. I live in Massachusetts, where there have been 29,918 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 1,108 deaths. In my county alone, there are now 110 confirmed cases of the virus. On March 20th, I packed up all of my belongings and moved out of my dorm, and it took me about 13 hours to drive back home, so along the way I had to stop at several gas stations and rest stops to refuel. I made sure to touch as few things as possible and sanitize my hands with disinfectant wipes constantly throughout my trip. About a week after I got home, I started getting bad headaches and felt very fatigued, but since I suffer from migraines, which are triggered by quick changes in the temperature, I thought nothing of it. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, I would suffer through a string of symptoms, including a dry cough, hot and cold flashes, pain and difficulty breathing, burning and sensitive skin, extreme fatigue, muscle weakness, vertigo, and aching joints. Whenever one symptom receded, I would get a new one, and it quickly became clear that there was something wrong. I became concerned due to the obvious similarities between my illness and COVID-19. Even though I showed suspicious symptoms, I couldn't be tested due to a shortage of virus tests, which are being reserved for those who are older or who already suffer from underlying health conditions. Basically, I was too young and healthy to be tested. It's now been about 3 weeks since my symptoms began, and I have been slowly recovering for the past week, but I'm still easily fatigued and lose my breath quickly. I urge everyone to please take this pandemic seriously and stay inside as much as possible so that we can limit the amount of people who have to suffer. Stay safe, stay healthy, and eventually we'll get through this and back to our normal lives.
At least 12 employees at Chapel Hill have tested positive for the coronavirus. They all work for the UNC Medical Center. Here's that story from WNCN.
At least 12 employees at UNC Hospital have tested positive for COVID-19. A spokesman for the hospital says those employees are in isolation and have to be cleared before returning to work. Jacob Garlow's 6-year-old son Jonathan is undergoing chemotherapy for bone cancer at the hospital. Garlow only learned of the cases after I told him.
As far as I've noticed, the precautions they've been taking, at least for like my son's floor and immunocompromised people, they've been doing a great job.
Garlow says he goes through a screening and a series of questions every time he walks through the doors.
So you're having a fever? You got any recent fevers?
Tammy Chambers is here with her grandson who has leukemia. She says the hospital gave her the mask she's wearing.
They even started today taking temperature. They hadn't been taking temperatures, but they're taking temperatures now when you go in.
UNC Health says it is aggressively testing employees who show symptoms and then tracing the people they've come into contact with. Despite the threat of COVID, Chambers tells me she feels safer with her grandson in the hospital instead of at home.
They are constantly putting the hand sanitizer on. They're constantly washing their hands. They have the outfits on if they need it. They're wearing the mask. I've never seen an employee without a mask on. So I feel comfortable that we're not going to catch anything. If we catch it, it's going to be from another source.
The Robeson County Health Department has reported 4 new cases of COVID-19 in one day this week. As we're putting this show together, the known tally is 15. 3 of the cases are over the age of 50, including a 76-year-old who is now hospitalized. Symptoms included shortness of breath, headache, fever, and a loss of both taste and smell.
The annual Lumbee Homecoming scheduled for early July has already been canceled because of the pandemic. This includes the annual pageants for Miss Lumbee and Little Miss Lumbee, which are a big part of local tradition. Organizers say the restrictions on mass gatherings makes the typical festival events impossible, and they needed to make the decision sooner rather than later.
With many states and localities now extending stay-at-home orders, many folks begin to wonder, when will the quarantine end? Our way of life has been shifted to rapidly adjust to the COVID-19 pandemic. For many of us, this new way of life can be stressful and anxious. Associate Director for UNCP's Counseling Services, Charlotte Suggs, spoke to me about the importance of staying grounded during this time and what you should be doing to manage your stress. What does stress maybe manifest itself as this time, and how can you mitigate that?
Wow, for your first question, that is a loaded one. Okay. Well, I think stress is our response to things happening that we don't like and that which we could control, but we can't. Right now, the mind and the body is responding to change.
What should students do, or anybody really, who feels like their mind is too full, who feels like they're being overwhelmed? What should they do?
Yeah. Okay, so a few things, actually, the first of which would be compassionate to yourself. We tend to be much kinder to others than we are to ourselves. And the same kindness that you would show a dear friend or a beloved family member that was in a season of suffering because of change or something else, the same kindness you would show them, the kindness that you would want to show to them. I mean, that's not being, well, it's being self-compassionate. And it's literally just being kind and easy on yourself. Nobody says that you leave your house. You're allowed to go outside for fresh air and exercise. We have to be safe about it. So going outside in nature is one of the best antidotes to brain drain that there is, and research substantiates that time and time again. So something as simple as walking out into your backyard, walking over into a courtyard or a park, and kicking off your flip-flops and feeling the grass on the street reminds you that you are connected to the world. Everybody else in it for sure, but the actual earth is. And when you're out there, find something to look at and look at it as if it's the first time you're ever seeing it.
Now remember, start a routine, meditate, and get some fresh air. Stay tuned until the end of our show, and Charlotte will lead us through a relaxation technique. For Carolina News Today, I'm Mason Miller.
If you're still on campus or just driving by on Prospect Road, you'll notice that the school's new formal entrance is finished. except for landscaping. The university never really had an official entranceway, and there's talk now of also finding a sculpture for it. Construction was timed with a remake of traffic patterns on Prospect Road that resulted in medians, a traffic circle, and safer pedestrian crossings.
Despite the pandemic, construction on the new School of Business is proceeding as planned. Take a look at this time-lapse video that started on March 3rd and goes all the way up to April 15th. Building and construction are considered essential businesses, so they've been able to keep working, weather permitting. The building will cost nearly $40 million when all is said and done, and will feature an auditorium, career center, a lab to observe real-time financial markets, and a food court.
I'm excited to share that the construction of the new School of Business is underway and on time. If you're interested in keeping up with the progress, you can click on our webcam on our facilities construction page, and we hope that you can join us in fall of 21 for the opening.
Renovations are also underway at West Hall, which is a former residence hall. It was taken offline many years ago and has mostly been used for storage on the first floor since then. It's a $10 million project that will result in new homes for the Division of Information Technology, the Office of Online Learning, and the Teaching and Learning Center. The renovation started with abatement of hazardous materials, and the whole building has to be brought up to code and will include new formal entrances. If you're allowed to have pets, it might be time to adopt a cat to keep you company right now. Cats are pretty low maintenance, and when you adopt from the Robeson County Humane Society, they come already spayed or neutered, or you get a voucher for the procedure if they are too young. Let's look at Fern, who's a pretty tabby cat available now.
So this is Fern. So she's one of our longer cat residents right now. She's a domestic short-haired tabby cat. She's very sweet, those lovely green eyes. She's a playful cat, but she's also laid back most of the time. Fern would be a great house cat. She gets along with the other cats fairly well, so you could probably have another cat in the home. She's been spayed, up to date on all shots, and dewormed. One of the main problems we find is that there are so many unwanted puppies and kittens born, and that's why the euthanasia rate is so high at the county pound. And even though we don't euthanize any here, we keep them for life. Every day, literally, I get phone calls. People that think kittens and puppies are so cute, and they are, but there's nothing sadder than seeing them put down because no one wants them. That's why it's so important to spay and neuter your animal. And we have programs that help with that. If you receive any type of assistance, we provide vouchers that you can get your animal spayed or neutered for very reduced cost. Fern has been here since last July. She's ready to go home. If you're ready to adopt, if you're looking for a great pet, you can email us at rchsfriendsforlife@gmail.com. You can call us at 910-738-8282 and we will email you an application. Or you can visit her at our location at 3180 West 5th Street, Lumberton. We would love for her to find a great forever home.
Out in the national parks, the wildlife is having something of a field day right now. Staff at places like Yosemite National Park are posting videos on social media of all the animals wandering freely. This black bear was spotted grazing on grass just across from the Yosemite Village. Park officials say about 500 black bears call the area home, and while that number hasn't increased because of COVID closures, they're seeing more of them because visitors aren't around. Vice President Pence will give the commencement speech in person at this weekend's Air Force Academy graduation ceremony. Pence will travel to Colorado Springs this Saturday for the engagement. The Vice President was initially planning to give the commencement speech in a video message, but then the Air Force Academy put out a statement Tuesday evening saying Pence would do it in person. The reason for the change isn't yet clear. The ceremony will be closed to the public. Graduating cadets in attendance are to maintain strict compliance with social distancing guidelines. According to an Academy statement, they will march 6 feet apart and sit 8 feet apart.
Some college applicants may end up taking their SATs at home this year. The College Board says it's preparing to make digital versions of the tests. Officials say that's because the coronavirus outbreak may prevent students from returning to school in September. However, at-home testing is only one of 3 scenarios the board is preparing for. Option 2 would be giving the SATs on weekends starting in August. And option 3 would be administering the test in the fall.
North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper issued stricter stay-at-home and social distancing rules for stores this week, which took effect Monday at 5 p.m. Tuesday, protesters gathered outside the state legislature, and one woman was arrested, demanding the reopening of businesses. Some protesters held signs that compared stay-at-home orders with tyranny. Michael Highland reports from the scene in Raleigh.
A protest during a pandemic.
You are in violation of the executive order.
Protesting people violating your rights is illegal now.
More than 100 people gathered in downtown Raleigh Tuesday.
There are some people who are just horribly suffering.
Courtney Fitzpatrick came here from Wilmington.
You can't call things so early, and it can cause hysteria. But say, hey, come May 1st, we can open this up, we can open that up. Give people hope.
Using the hashtag ReopenNC, some people want Governor Roy Cooper to rescind his stay-at-home order. Dennis Burgard says he just wants a clearer plan for how the state's economy will reopen.
We have a lot of people who are trying to plan for the future, but there's no plan.
While some people stayed in or near their cars, others gathered outside, with police urging them initially to stay at least 6 feet apart. An hour later, as the crowd grew, police told them to leave or risk getting arrested, which one woman was.
These officers are just doing their job, and I'm just doing mine.
This all happened as the state saw its largest daily jump so far in deaths tied to COVID-19. DHHS Secretary Mandy Cohen says despite that, the rate of the disease spreading is slowing.
Our efforts to stay at home are working. It is slowing the spread. But the second is that I don't see a peak at this moment in time.
The stay-at-home order lasts for another 2 weeks. The governor says he's consulting experts on whether to extend it.
Welcome to NCDOT Now. I'm Lauren Haviland. Several North Carolina communities will soon benefit from Watch For Me NC, a program that aims to reduce bike and pedestrian crashes and fatalities. Watch For Me NC trains law enforcement officers on how to ensure North Carolina roads are safe for everyone. The program also provides communities with materials meant to raise awareness about bicycle and pedestrian safety. There are 7 new and 23 returning Watch For Me NC communities across the state. To see the list, go to our website, ncdot.gov. It's National Safe Digging Month, and traditionally, April means increased construction and personal yard work, including digging. Every 9 minutes, an underground utility line is damaged because someone decided to dig without calling 811. Remember to always call 811 before digging because striking underground utilities can be dangerous and could lead to an expensive fine. The North Carolina Department of Transportation always calls 811 before crews start digging on any size project, and you should too. We're all working hard to stop the spread of COVID-19, and now the state has launched a new website for people seeking information about the pandemic. Here you can find the latest information about protecting your health, applying for unemployment, and many other topics related to COVID-19. NCDOT is also providing updates as necessary. You can find that information and more on our website, ncdot.gov. That's all for this week's edition of NCDOT Now. From all of us here at the North Carolina Department of Transportation, safe travels.
Braves athletics returns to familiar territory for the 21-22 seasons.
And the first NFL player is confirmed with COVID-19.
CNT Sports up next.
What's going on, Brave Nation? Welcome back to Virtual CNT. I'm Ty the Sports Guy. UNCP Director of Athletics Dick Christie has announced a major change for almost every sport the school has. We'll just let you hear it from the source himself.
Starting in the 21-22 athletic year, so not next year, but the following year, we'll start in Conference Carolinas for 15 out of our 16 sports. Football will remain in the Mountain East Conference in the strong partnership we have there, and our other 15 sports will all move under one umbrella into Conference Carolinas. where 5 of our opponents are located in North Carolina and 11 of our 13 conference partners will be in North or South Carolina. This is such a win for our families, for your parents, for our alumni, and for our students. You guys will be off the road for over 170 miles less per trip. More time in class, more time in study hall, more time in extracurriculars, and more time to just be a student and to excel. This is a great thing for our opportunity to win championships. It's a great thing for our chance to be a leader in the Southeast region. And I'm so excited for what this means for the future of Braves athletics.
Old-timers might be having a little deja vu right now, considering the school competed in the Carolina Conference from 1976 until 1992. Back then, the conference was not in the NCAA, and Pembroke was making the jump to Division II sports. UNCP will join interstate rival Francis Marion University as the only 2 public colleges in the conference. As most of you may know, the Braves basketball team was headed to Tennessee to compete in the NCAA Division II tournament, but had to turn the bus around and head back home due to COVID-19. Senior star forward Akia Pruitt talked to us about what that moment meant to him and the team.
I think we all agreed and going to look back at this as it was a pretty special season for us, being able to accomplish regular season wins and just making history with each other. So I think that's good within itself. I think the long ride back too was also pretty good for us because we was able to talk and be able to cope with our season just ending the way it did, but also knowing that for a lot of us, basketball doesn't end there. So I think we also found comfort in that.
Akia is planning for the NBA draft and does have workouts set up, but due to the pandemic, those workouts will have to be put on hold for a while. Don't forget to check out UNCP's Game of the Week on YouTube as women's basketball faces up against Flagler. Last week we mentioned how the Open was canceled completely and other tournaments were postponed. Well, on Instagram, Golf Channel posted a revised schedule for the PGA Tour. The first tournament, the Charles Schwab Challenge, will be held on June 8th through the 14th. Other big tournaments, such as the PGA Championship, will be held on August 3rd through the 9th. The Tour Championship, August 31st through September 7th. The U.S. Open, September 14th through the 20th. And the Masters, November 9th through the 15th. It is expected that these tournaments will be held without fans. Cycling's most famous race, the Tour de France, has been postponed to Saturday, August 29th to Sunday, September 20th due to the coronavirus pandemic. That means the race will not take place in its traditional June to July slot for the first time since the end of the Second World War. French President Emmanuel Macron said on Monday that no large-scale public event would take place in the country until mid-July as a part of the measures to contain the outbreak. The prestigious race was due to be held from June 27th to July 19th. The NFL is dealing with its first confirmed case of a player with coronavirus. Wednesday, the Los Angeles Rams said one of their players tested positive for COVID-19. Brian Allen is a center for the team. Allen is the first active player in the NFL to test positive for the virus. He is not the first person in the league to contact the disease. New Orleans head coach Sean Payton was the first person in the league to test positive. And that's all the sports updates I have for you this week. Until next time, I'm Ty the Sports Guy.
Thanks, Ty, and thanks to you all for watching.
Now stick around for a little relaxation exercise with Charla Suggs from UNCP's Counseling and Psychological Services.
So when you have a moment, stop, take a deep breath, and find some time to show yourself some compassion as well as show others the kindness that you would want to receive in turn. It's going to take a little while, but we know what to do and we're here for each other. So be well, stay encouraged, be brave.